Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. My name is Ways Asmal. The main aim of the show is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. A reminder that the show will be on podcast by latest tomorrow morning. So if you're joining us live, please drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves. And if you are watching the recording, please drop a two in the comments. My guest this week is Kantha Naicker, Chairperson of the Board of the South African Institute of Professional Accountants and Managing Director of Evolve Accounting. Kantha, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Tooways. It's a pleasure to be here.
To jump straight into questions, tell us your story. Where have you come from? Outside of work, who is Kantha Naicker? Give us that backstory.
So I have long stories, I said to you, and anybody who's tuned in who knows me knows I can say a lot and speak a lot. I can speak the hind leg of a donkey. But I'm originally from Ladysmith, a small backwater town in northern Natal. I grew up there and spent most of a good few years of my life there. And I credit a lot of who I am from the experiences that shaped me at that time. I finished my matric overseas. I'm an alumni of the United World Colleges movement internationally. I attended a college on the west coast of Canada called Pearson College, and that's 30 years ago, so I'm giving away my age. I returned after that scholarship experience. I came back to South Africa and I studied to be comped. And in those days, you could do them. There was a lot of unrest at the universities, and I ended up doing it by UNISA, getting lectures at Damlin, and I did that with my current business partner, Rukia Aziz, at Evolve Accounting. We studied together, we lived together, and eventually parted ways because we're female and we get married and start families and that sort of thing. And we both practiced separately for a number of years. And she came back to Durban, and we then got involved with SAIPA. Well, at that time, it wasn't called SAIPA. It was called, we were Chartered and Financial Accountants, the CFA. I served article. She served article. She came back. We joined the committee, so we got involved in the structures of SAIPA. The rest is history, because I think I've been SAIPAnised for the last 15 years, if not more than that. But I've been a SAIPA member for 20 years. I've been in business for 20 years. I fell into business quite by accident. I was running a practice after serving my SAICA articles. And the guy said to me, look, don't you want to register? You're going to be a mommy and everything else. And so, quite by accident, fell into business, used to cart my son around in a little carry chair, and had him crawl around trying to stick stiffy discs into machines. That also tells you how old I am. Then set up a practice from home, and just loved it, because I ended up, the clients came rolling in. My kids grew up in front of me. I got to do a lot of the firsts with them. Grew the business, moved out of home, grew to a complement of about 7-8 staff, cut down again. And then quite a few years ago, my dad retired, and he's also a professional accountant, SA. And we just had a situation that worked, where we had a practice in the basement of a house, and they lived upstairs, and my kids got the best of both worlds. They had use of the boardroom to do homework, that sort of thing. And then I left my practice to my dad. My dad actually assisted with running the practice for about 4 years or so, which was when I started getting onto the SAIPA board. And, I'd been very, very involved in the local structures, chairperson of the region and that sort of thing. I started working for a company who was involved in skills development. They were facet funded. And we set up a virtual accounting office to train graduates before they went into practices on a work readiness program. That finished, and then I got onto the board. It was my first board stint back in 2008.
And I did, come a long way then on the board.
Yeah, and I did that for 4 years. I got onto Exco. I got into trouble because I spoke too much. Well, I disagreed a lot. And yeah, it was, like they say, the rest is kind of history, because I took a gap year and then I came back to the board. And I think a little bit more knowledgeable, just having some understanding around the profession and obviously locally, the profession on the continent and internationally. Yeah, I am chairperson of the board suddenly, almost more than 18 months down the line, through COVID, through last year. So it was a tumultuous year to lead a board, but a very, very fulfilling experience. And I must backtrack a little bit, because in 2016, Rukia and myself took a huge leap of faith. We should have done this more than 10, 15. We should have done this from the beginning, actually. We were sitting in our separate practices and we decided to merge our two businesses, Rukia and Associates and Reddy's Financial Services. And so Evolve Accounting was born. And that was 2016, and here we are, Durban, Joburg, a branch in Ladysmith, and female-owned practice. Very proud to say that we have majority females. We do have an Tooways, who is the only male, and he sits in our Ladysmith office. But yeah, just loving it. I think you've got to love what you do. Your passion will speak for who you are and the type of work that you produce. And that's just always been my driving force. I put my all into it, and always put too much into it maybe, but it's the way I've been taught. It's my DNA. It's my Reddy DNA. Even my maiden surname's Reddy, and I'm very proud.
So you're covering half of South Africa. You just need to get to the other half. But heading up a national organization the size of SAIPA is obviously no mean feat, on top of being an MD of your business. So where do you find the time to prioritize two very important and impactful roles?
It's difficult to find. It's a fine line, because one can take over the other very quickly. But I want to stand still a little bit to just acknowledge the amazing team that we have at Evolve Accounting, the three ladies that sit in this office in Durban in Westville, and my business partner. I mean, there's a lot that I could I would never be able to do half of the SAIPA things if it were not for them. And I think we push each other sufficiently, because if I look at where I'm lagging, from a client perspective, I have an admin person that says to me, "You will answer this in the next hour. These are the 3 things I need to answer on now." So it's very nice to have that sort of relationship where you don't actually, you own the business, but you work together as a team. And I think this team that we have is just amazing. So I want to just acknowledge my business partner and the wonderful people we work with, the wonderful women we work with, because they all do what it takes to just, keep everything going. So they are my support system. And then just having a family support system. I've got a family that is so understanding. My kids have always sort of handed out SAIPA flyers. My sons, the first time I got onto SAIPA board, my son asked me, he says to me, so I sent a message home to say, I'm on the board now. And he says, "What does that mean for me? Do I still have to hand out flyers?" I said, "Well, yeah, Saturday to students, you're going to have to stand at the door and then I'll give you a sucker. But yeah, you're going to have to hand out flyers." And I think the funniest story about that is my son constantly says, or not constantly, in grade 4 told his teacher, "My mom's not here. She actually owns SAIPA." And she asked, and he said to his teacher, SAIPA is the South African Institute of Professional Accountants. There are 2 accountancy bodies in this country, one SAIPA, the other SAIPA. And for that, I knew I'd done my job, because out the mouth of babes, you could know it, then everybody else should know it, and we all should be singing the praises. So it's a juggle, but I have a wonderful support system. I have a family that walks alongside me. My dad, I must credit my dad for being my first sponsor and champion, and many other men who've actually stood alongside me and sponsored me. And I think that's key to sort of diversity, and people, if people believe in you and give you an opportunity, especially male, in a very male-dominated environment, you win. And I see that happening.
Agreed. No person is an island, 100%.
And our numbers speak for it. Our SAIPA numbers speak for it. We have 48, 52, 48 female, 52 on the full membership. And if you look at our staff complement, we're 90% female. So, so turning the sort of conversation and having a look at how we can change things. It's about men taking their rightful place, not being bra burning and, all of those feminist, hippie ideas. It's about everybody walking on the same journey and saying, let's support each other, men and women equally.
Okay. A reminder to everyone that we will be responding to questions at the end. So please add your questions to the comments now, and we'll have a look at them towards the end. So Kantha, I'm gonna be honest. All my career, I haven't heard that much about SAIPA. So I met the SAIPA delegate probably at the Abasa Awards about 9 years ago. But only when I joined my current organization, I found out about SAIPA articles and trainees. I didn't hear anything about it at university. It seems like SAIPA is not that well known outside of its industry. I don't know if that's just my experience or if it's a general branding issue.
You're not alone, and I'll go back. I mean, we're 38 years old, 39 this year. We were born out of SAIPA. So what happened back in the day, 39 years ago, there are many people who did part one, and in those years it was PARV and part one and part two, so very different lingo, but similar to what we do now in terms of qualification. We had people who had passed part one but couldn't pass part two, people who had passed CTA like myself. I'm a 3 times failed CTA, and I'm willing to say it on any stage. I passed different subjects at different stages of my career, and I ended up with an honors. And yes, I'm a failed CA. People will say I'm a failed CA, but for me, it's not failure, right? Failure is always a stepping stone to somebody else. So it was kind of something 100%. Else. So it's always good that SAIPA, or the then we were called the accounting account AIT, and it's been a journey of a number of names, but we settled on SAIPA, and I'll get to how we got there. It's been a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing in that we created this organization that takes care of people who have the requisite skill, competence, etc. They've been through articles, or they've done first part, they've done part of CTA, and they were just sitting in limbo in the economy, and so the chartered accountancy brand is really strong, and I've got wonderful colleagues who, all of them, chartered accountants, ended up becoming IRBA members and are registered auditors. And the brand grew very quickly. But this little brand, this SAIPA CFA kind of brand, never grew. And people were kind of afraid to say, hello, I'm a SAIPA member. And so I encourage that now. I say to members, listen, you need to be #SAIPA proud. You need to introduce yourself. So I'd get on the plane in Durban, I'd fly to Joburg, 1 hour, and the person next to me is convinced that I'm a chartered accountant, but it's my job to convince them otherwise. So I'd say to them, I'm not a chartered accountant, I'm a professional accountant SA. This is the distinction. I cannot register at IRBA, but a chartered accountant and a professional accountant SA sit on the same level. We do the same sort of work. It's just that we've had more people in practice than we've had people in corporate. Hence, corporate not knowing much about it. We're making lots of inroads into public sector. We've done a fair amount of work in terms of professionalizing that space and professionalizing people in commerce and industry. But largely, our members sit in practice. And so with the doers, the more of the doers, because I'll tell you, I know people, and I know some names, I won't drop them here, but they don't know how to do a VAT return because they've never done that, because you go into SAIPA articles, and I'm talking traditionally. Things have certainly changed with the new training model and sort of the competency and skills that are given to people now. But I believe that we can complement each other. If you look at Australia, if you look at Nigeria, if you look at England, Canada, the States, I can name a few countries where we have professionals who sit on par, who just integrate into the profession seamlessly, because we've got a cost and management accountant, we've got a chartered or a CPA equivalent, who would then be an auditor as well. And in fact, I've just left a meeting now of the Edinburgh group, which is a lobby group to IFAC, which looking at SMME or SMP practices, small medium practices, and how they serve the SMME. Because we all know SMMEs are 80 to 90% of the world's economy. So are we talking to major corporates of 200 employees, or do we want to talk to the guys that have 0 to 50 and are making such a huge dent on the ground in terms of the economies of the world? So
And I always say that's where the unemployment rate's going to be. That's where the job creation happens, is in the small businesses. It's not in the big businesses. They're always looking to cut. They're always looking to retrench. So the small businesses is where the jobs
and
come from.
phenomenal work. I mean, we've met people from Fiji and Vanuatu, and we attend all of these IFAC engagements. And so I must tell you, from a South African perspective, we've got SAIPA and SAIPA, and both of us belong to IFAC, which is the International Federation of Accountants, which is the credible. Well, it's like the FIFA. I mean, it's the easiest way to say, because people know soccer, right? So it's the FIFA of the accountants. So the reality is, SAIPA and SAIPA both play a wonderful role on the continent, in the country, on the continent, and internationally. And for that, I know it's a branding thing, and we're not well known, but we've also changed names a few times over. People are kind of maybe confused as to what we do. We're certainly not bookkeepers. I think there's a different subset of people that can be called bookkeepers, and the QCTO and the changes that we're seeing to the curriculum and all that now currently will talk to those sort of subsets of people who are all needed in the value chain of the profession, in my opinion.
Okay, very interesting. So switching over a little bit, so the auditing profession in South Africa has taken a few major reputational blows in the last few years. Does that have a blowback on SAIPA? And what are your thoughts on how is SAIPA responding or should be responding?
So I think we're needing to sit back and evaluate from afar all our roles. So not just the profession, not just the auditing profession, but the profession at large. Because who feeds into the auditing profession? It's accountants, right? And we all get painted with the same brush. So when the sign-offs happened and all of those things happened, even our clients were saying to us, "You people, you accountants, you did the wrong thing." And you've got to take it in your stride, number one, and you've got to then speak to people and educate people about the difference. So they're professional accountants, they are chartered accountants, and chartered accountants, by an act of law, are allowed to be auditors. And those two things should never mix. The advice and the accounting and the auditing should never mix, right? And that's what happened with Steinhoff. That mixed, and it mixed badly. It happened at Tonga Hewlett and all over. So it's incumbent on all of us to act as professionals in this field to speak out about the wrong, the corruption, the sign-offs, the tick and dash approach, which doesn't help anybody, the questioning, which we should all be doing at every stage. It's incumbent on us as organizations to stand fast. And I'll tell you, you would have seen in the last 18 months or so, anything related to the auditing profession, we as SAIPA have gone out, and our CE is quite vociferous in this respect, have gone out and made commentary and said, let's work together. How do we work together to make things right? So recently, I think about 2 weeks ago, there was something in the paper, KPMG. KPMG has the worst name globally because, they've just done wrong. And yes, some of the things that were done were wrong. However, if we don't start trying to repair that sort of relationship, we're not going to get this. So KPMG said they're not going to be mixing their consulting and their auditing. I think it was, I can't remember the exact article. And we put something out and we said, Ignatius, we support you. As an organization, we support you because we work in that field and we're willing to come help you. And we got a very nice personal message from him saying, thank you so much for your support. It means so much because we're needing to start turning the conversation around. So from a SAIPA perspective, our focus will always be how do we work collaboratively to make things better? And that's always been our stance. And it will continue being that long after I've left.
I noticed, especially when it comes to, you always get you might get one or two clients with very, very pushy people, and that's how things can go the wrong way. When they're trying to push something that's not particularly legal, and they try to, so that's where you need to push back as an accountant, and that covers the whole. I mean, all of us really.
But it's tough always, isn't it? Tough when you're a young professional and you sit there and you're really needing this job, and that person is saying, "But if you don't do this, this will happen. You won't have a job. You won't have food on the table." And it's very easy for us seasoned professionals to sit there and say, "Oh, just leave." And somebody said this to me once. A young woman said this to me. You've got the confidence. Like, you can just tell them off. So I said, no, I can't tell them off. This confidence didn't happen overnight. It's happened over a number of years. But it only happens if you are knowledgeable about your subject and you are able, and you've done the research and you're able to stand your ground. And that's particularly true for women at board level with this male dominated thing. We have it with clients as well, where people take a chance and say, oh, these are my accountants, these females, maybe we can get away with it. You're not going to get away with it, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we do the right thing, and we're going to make you do the right thing. If you don't do the right thing, we don't want you in our stable of clients.
And so we mentioned this branding issue. We're growing the brand potentially for the SAIPA members and the trainees who want to get more involved in, let's say, influencing policy and SAIPA direction. How can they get involved?
So we have a number of ways. We've got regional and district committees who are very, very involved in their local regions. So in terms of how the work's done, municipalities, audit committees, we have a number of people who sit on audit committees. I want to tell you, the head of Vodacom, and Shamil Joseph is our member. He doesn't say so, but he should be saying I'm a professional accountant SA first. The head of Zero Accounting is our member. We have people at Parliament who are members. We contribute to policy and regulation and laws all the time. We go out to our membership to come back with feedback to us, or to feedback to us. We have committees and subcommittees. So we have committees which are normally board committees, which is a king thing. But we have secretariat committees. So people that sit within those committees that will feed to how or give us their experience in terms of thought leadership, etc., so that we can filter that into what we are presenting to Treasury or Parliament, to anybody else. We've got a fully fledged technical team that supports members, but also looks to supporting stakeholders and stakeholder engagement, all those sort of things. We sit, and this is such a big coup for SAIPA, we sit as the head, our CE chairs the Edinburgh group. It's a lobby group with an IFAC. It represents over quite 1 million small, medium practices. And so we constantly knocking on IFAC's door, saying to IFAC, representing that group, obviously, saying to IFAC, this is how things need to change. You can't just talk about the audit and the accounting. We need to talk about them together. We contribute to education on the continent. Our Professor Small is just, and he's somebody you may want to chat to on this forum. He's done some amazing work across the continent looking at education models and the way in which things should change. In fact, our own education model has changed drastically, not just in and out type of regurgitation of information, but encouraging thought leadership, explaining deferred tax in a professional exam as opposed to calculating it, and people
oh, that's possible. I didn't realize it.
Don't know what it is, and that's the way our exams are.
No, that's good. So basically, for those young members, get involved if you want to influence direction on those committees, and it's also a good way to network. So that's your network is your net worth, as people mentioned.
Absolutely. We're pushing the hashtag SAIPA Proud hashtag. It's been something that was developed by one of my youngest board members from PE, and it's still called PE now. It hasn't changed yet fully. And so he actually developed this hashtag SAIPA Proud hashtag, and it's done wonders for just changing this whole culture around who you are and being proud about being a SAIPA member.
So we're going to move over to some questions just to see what I'm going to bring up some of the questions on the screen. We've got a question from Tumisani. SAIPA is an IFAC member. What can we do as members of the profession to advance the profession in South Africa so that we work collaboratively as various professional bodies and to gain URBA's accreditation where relevant? Any thoughts?
So we chair the Forum of Accounting Bodies in South Africa that's made up of SAIPA, SAICA, ACCA, and SEMA. SAIPA being the homegrown bodies. There are talks about looking at how we change that act, because remember it's an act of parliament that has to change with URBA in order for us to include other professionals. But of course the profession is sitting in a bit of a boiling pot at the moment. There have been talks since the Rust report in 2011. We were challenged by the World Bank in 2011 to look at how SAICA and SAIPA can work collaboratively from a regularization and regulation of the profession, because we are self-regulating to a certain extent. I mean, IRBA regulates the auditors, but SAIPA and SAICA are self-regulating bodies. So there certainly is room to have those talks. It's happened in other jurisdictions. It's happened in Australia. It's happened in Canada. You've seen a merging of bodies. It's happened in the States. And I can't see why it will not happen here. I think, if anything, the last year has shown us that bodies have to work together in order to, and all the scandals have shown us that bodies have to work together to kind of separate out who the specialists are: financial accountants, management accountants, auditors, risk people, and whoever else sits in the definition. So SAIPA certainly sits on our cards. We are looking at it, but it is a change in an act that has to happen, and it's certainly something that the World Bank is looking at, and other regulatory bodies around the world are looking at.
Okay. Then we've got a comment from Ayanda who says SAIPA and SAIPA should advertise themselves using student membership designation, so that people who are not in the accounting professional can know a little bit more. That's just, I guess, a thought from him. Let me just see if there's any. I see.
We are working quite hard at that. Actually, there's lots of work being done on the ground with schools and universities and that sort of thing.
Then we've got Neo Homoto who says he's looking for some advice in how to fit into SAIPA articles, because it feels like they're being excluded by, I don't know, some companies using fair discrimination. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that one.
Look, you should not be discriminated against at all. It should be a balanced, transparent kind of view. I did have a comment via LinkedIn today where somebody said to me, there's a list of approved training centers that are listed on your website, and it seems a lot of them are not anymore. And I know that's truthful, because since COVID, a lot of people have decided they're not a training center anymore, because it's so difficult to actually offer that articles or learnership or whatever it's called now, because it's all online, and it's, people were not able to actually go out and get that type of experience. But I think the only thing you can do, Neo, is just keep knocking on the doors. And remember, it's not only a SAIPA firm that offers you SAIPA articles. So Mazars, for instance, is and I think it's Mazars Cape Town, Mazars PE. I'm not sure about the Joburg branch, but there are a lot of SAICA firms that offers the SAIPA route. So don't discount a PwC or the KPMG or any of those. Write to the training officer, or the HR and say, I'm interested in coming to work for your firm. I want to serve my learnership with you. Do you offer a SAIPA route? And maybe if they don't, you can possibly convince them to, and drop us a membership at saipa.co.za and just say, look, these guys want to offer me something, but they're not a SAIPA ATC. And invariably, if they're a SAICA registered training, RTO, registered training organization, we're looking to go, and we're very happy to go and accredit them and give you that opportunity. So bring those opportunities to us as well, so that we can help you achieve your goals.
Another question from Dumisani: what's the stance on the CA Charter, and do you think what was recommended in the Charter is relevant or useful in transforming the profession?
We did have a little bit of input into it. It was not, obviously it's called the CA Charter for a reason, because it talks, to chartered accountants. I know that ABASA, Association of Black Accountants South Africa, had quite a bit of input into it. I think we should look at an accountant's charter, a professional accountant's charter, looking at the definition of professional accountants. The definition of professional accountants sits with IFAC. Always, you are a professional accountant. You're just not a professional accountant SA. If you go look at the IFAC definition, we are all professional accountants. In some countries, it's in the States, it's a CPA, it's a CGA in Canada, it's a CA here, and a professional accountant SA. So we separate ourselves by the fact that we call ourselves professional accountants SA. But we are all called professional accountants by IFAC. So whether you live in Timbuktu or Romania or down in the Cayman Islands, you are a professional accountant. So I do believe that the CA Charter should be all-encompassing, especially because we're trying to work very collaboratively to make the profession more transparent, more transformed, etc. And so there have been talks between SAIPA and SAICA, but it needs to be taken to another level. And I'm sure that's going to happen beyond my time. I don't think that will happen in the next 6 to 6 to 18 months.
And I'm going to try and slip in one last question just to see, because I know we're running short of time. This is a bit of a strange one, so feel free if it says the Anti-Intimidation Forum, of which SAIPA is a member, is dormant. Do you know anything about this, or is this something
we signed
slightly different?
About 2 years ago, more than that, 3 years ago, we signed as members of this forum. Obviously, in keeping with all the things that we believe in: anti-corruption, anti-intimidation, etc. I'm going to pick this up with my CE. I didn't realize that it is dormant, and thank you for whoever it is that posted that's bringing it to my attention. I will pick it up with my CE later on when I chat with him, and I will also ask why the IASA is chairing the forum and how that actually works, because I do know we have a seat on that board. So thank you for that question. See, you never know everything. Other people know more than you about your own organization.
And any last few words from you? Anything that we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know about?
I think anybody can do this. I'm an example of the fact that anybody can do this. I'm a girl from a backwater town. I'm from Ladysmith, and I mean that with the greatest of respect to all my Ladysmith colleagues and friends and family. I think you need to be passionate about what you do, what you believe in. You need to be authentic. Sometimes your hair is not combed, like my hair is constantly sticking up here, God knows why. And you've just got to believe in you, because if you don't, you just ain't gonna climb that ladder. And I don't believe I've climbed any special ladder. I am who I am. You can meet me on the beachfront and I'll be in my slops, and I am who I am. So I'm not led by my title. I am Kantha Naicker, and what you see is what you get. So I want to encourage especially young women out there, to just reach out if you're needing the mentorship and the support. And I endeavor always to answer every question or to get back to people. Ask, because you just never know. I got a scholarship to go to Canada because I couldn't answer a question about the IFP back when the IFP and the ANC were killing each other in KZN. I went into the board, I couldn't answer a nominations committee question because I simply didn't know. And I said, I actually don't know, and I'm going to have to research that. So be true to yourself. If you don't know, you don't know. You can't know everything. I didn't know about the Anti-Intimidation Forum. I'd like to go ask my CE about it now. And just be true to who you are. What you see is what you get. That's me.
I'm gonna steal one more minute and just ask. There's a couple of comments of the same question, so please don't, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna slip it in quickly. Is there a chance of seeing a reciprocal agreement between SAIPA and SAICA in future?
Oh, I understand, Sibaya. Which wall have you been sitting on since 2011? There have been a number of talks, and if you go back in and you search this sort of thing, since the Rosk report came out in 2011, this has been on the cards. It has fallen off the table because of change in leadership, etc., or change in focus, and we've had other things that have taken up our time as organizations. I do believe that the regularization and regulation of the profession is sorely needed, not only in South Africa, but on the continent, for the greater good of the continent, the World Bank reporting, and everything else that we're involved in. It's there, it's sitting in the background. We've had a few change of ministers. That needs to talk to this process as well. It will happen, maybe not in my time, maybe in your time. Who knows, you could be the next chairperson sitting out there.
Definitely. Just a reminder that the show will be available on podcast by latest tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or the podcast and you feel that the video has added value, please don't forget to subscribe so that you get automatically notified every time the next episode comes out. We've also started a weekly discussion on Clubhouse about business and investing in South Africa. Join us on Mondays at 5 p.m. Central African time. I'll be sending out information about the next episode in a few days. Kantha, thank you so much for joining us. You've added so much value, and I'm sure and for taking the questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. Always wonderful to just be able to say what we have to say. So thank you for the platform. Most appreciated.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.